I'm now going to bring on Erikaa, and uh, I have been so impressed with how you've shared your story of awakening, Erikaa, and so I'm going to put the full spotlight on you, and please do share with our audience your story.
Thank you, Scott. So I am Erikaa, and I first want to give honor to those in the Ukraine and big prayers to the Ukraine. And I really love this idea of forgiveness. I believe it's the biggest practice we can all master each and every single moment. I know that I'm always forgiving my ancestors, my mom, my father, and those who have, been in the place of shame. So a lot of my story has a lot to do with shame. And it started when I was sexually abused every day with a gun next to my mother's bed. And I think it was the biggest blessing that I realized it was my initiation to the place of becoming a self-pleasure shaman. And it took me many moments to get into the realm of forgiveness. And it started by just learning how to connect with my breath in meditation. And a big practice for me has been learning to forgive. And one of my favorite memories of forgiveness has a lot to do when I started getting into a practice of meditation. And it's not the formal type of meditation where we listen to an audio track. It's really learning to be without sound and being in relationship to silence. Why silence? Sometimes silence can bring uncomfortable feelings, feelings of belonging, and sometimes memories come up. And for me, when I was in silence, I had this deep memory of my stepfather. And I felt that I was ready to let that story go, let that suffering go. And in that moment, I discovered that I was pure and I was a joyful little girl. And all of you are joyful children. All of you are joyful children. Because that is our divinity, that is our mysticism, that is the start to stepping into the role of shaman, healer. And it really comes down to the fundamentals of love, especially the love to ourselves and learning how to embrace our sexuality. That is my mission. That is what I stand for. What really started my journey to awakening was when I started writing my Sacred Prostitute Chronicles, and this was actually last year. So my history is after my childhood, I got into the sex industry for almost a decade, thinking I'm only going to be in this industry for a few months. And I realized that I have not fully owned that story. I was in and out. And then I realized I need to forgive myself. The biggest person I needed to forgive was not my mom, was not my stepdad, was the little girl within me, being the role model for my inner child. And so I started writing these chronicles, and I was like curious. I said, I don't know what a self-pleasure shaman looks like. And I'm always discovering that. I'm not an expert, but the best experts know nothing. The best masters know nothing. And that is something that I've learned from meditation. Like right now, I'm not planning to, didn't plan what to say, but I am speaking from my heart. And I believe that when you speak from your heart and let go of the knowledge, all of the wisdom comes through. And so my journey to becoming a self-pleasure shaman was literally asking myself, what do I not know today? And how can I love myself even deeper? And sharing my story from a place of trust and forgiveness. And one of my favorite practices that I encourage you all is to start writing the new story. And maybe the first part of it is sharing your fears. So for me, one of my practices besides meditation and Wim Hof and forgiveness is actually writing, because it confronts us with the old narrative, the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is beautiful. There's ups, there's downs. We meet the uncomfortable characters in our lives, the evil villains, the damsels in distress. And we realize that it's all perfect. It's all perfect to always start to discover our new tale. And even as I'm sharing this, I'm still rediscovering what a self-pleasure shaman is. I'm still discovering who Erikaa is and connecting with my ancestors. The more that I let go and unlearn, the more I remember my divinity. And that is my invitation for all of you, is to remember your divinity by letting go of the stories that are disempowering, the stories that are making you feel wrong, the stories about the people that hurt you. And sometimes the best thing to do is just let it go. And release is the biggest practice for me. And it has a lot to do with Tantra. So part of self-pleasure is tapping into the Tantra realms. And I'm not speaking about classical Tantra. It's the Tantra that we all have naturally. The laughter, the joy, the connection, the vulnerability, the ugly cries. And so all of that is available to us. All of that is available to us by just trusting our voice, using your voice. And I will say that when I started this journey, I was afraid of using my voice. And I was told, don't talk about your story. Don't share it. Don't tell anyone. Be in the realm of secrecy. I lived in the realm of secrecy for years. And I never imagined being on such a beautiful platform where I could express with other co-creators and sharing that story, because someone out there is needing that, to feel a sense of hope, resilience. And so it's important to share your truth, because right now Ukraine needs it, the world needs it. And so I am Erikaa, and it's a pleasure to be here.
What are some practical steps that you could offer to our viewers, the people watching?
This is such a beautiful question. The practice is no different than singing, than dancing, than writing, than playing. That is a simple practice. But when it comes to shame, it's a heavy emotion. And I think I saw that someone was asking, what is shame? And there's a difference between shame and guilt. Shame is a vibration of I am bad, and guilt is a vibration of I did something wrong. So shame is, like Astaria said, is just abusing our inner child, saying negative things about ourselves. And what is a great practice is noticing when you're starting to get into that language. And for me, my first language is Spanish, so I'm always learning to be gentle on myself. So the first step is be the gentle observer. Just notice, what are the thoughts that are playing around? And if you're really good at meditating, then practice meditating when you're walking. As I see, Scott is really good at walking meditation, but be the gentle observer. And before I got onto the show, I said, I don't know if I'm a self-pleasure shaman. I haven't studied shamanism. So I started to notice the monkey mind. And the second part is being vulnerable, being honest with what is present. I have a habit of being in denial. I have a habit of, oh yes, I'm gonna have the ring light. And but the best thing is to practice vulnerability. And there's something that my friend Juliana Garcia teaches me. There's a difference between vulnerability and elegant vulnerability. And elegant vulnerability is when you separate the story from the emotion, is when you separate the story from the emotion, and that is wisdom. So when you're in the space of elegant vulnerability, you're being able to teach your story from a place of wisdom, from a place of the shaman. So when I started writing my chronicles, I was writing from a place of how can I share the story to the younger version of me? How can I share this from the ancestor that I desire to become? Because all of you are ancestors. You don't have to be dead to be an ancestor. You can be an ancestor to your inner child. So again, a big practice is be the gentle observer, be vulnerable, find a safe space to speak about it. Obviously, this is a safe space to talk about sexuality, to talk about the taboo. And for me, some of the safe spaces have been sex positive containers, being connected to people that will not judge me. But most important is to not judge yourself. Most important is to not judge yourself. And that is a practice, noticing the judgmental voice, noticing the voice of shame. And Carl Jung says that shame is a soul-sucking emotion. And to be in the place of self-pleasure, it doesn't mean that it has to be sexual. Just because I say self-pleasure doesn't always have to be about masturbation. It could always just use of easy fundamental tools of sound, breath, movement, presence. Sound, you can use your voice. And when I say use your voice, use the voice from your core, the root. And Rumi says, return to the root of within. It's one of my favorite poems of Rumi. And so use sound. And when you use sound, if you're noticing that there is an easiness, or if you're noticing that maybe there's like some shame coming up of using your voice, that is the block. When I think of block is the thing that we're afraid to say, the sounds that we're afraid to make. Maybe it's an animalistic growl. Ah! And that could just be an exercise. That can be a practice. You don't have to have a didgeridoo. You don't have to be a world-renowned poet. You don't have to be a Rumi. You just have to play with that animalistic sound within you. And then, of course, movement. For me, dancing is my way of being into my shamanism. It's free. This is all available to you. And if you have a story about, oh, I can't dance, actually, you don't have to be perfect. Let go of that story. Let go of the story that you have to be perfect. And presence is, again, being the gentle observer. Part of presence is actually connecting to your breath. And this is one of my favorite mantras, is breath is your lover. If you treat breath as your favorite lover, you're gonna be present. So those are my key practices, and I'm complete.
Thank you so much, Erikaa. I am going to, two things. Thank you for helping to differentiate between guilt and shame. That's really, really important.
I'm just really grateful to be here. And I think this is a powerful conversation to have, to step into the light. Like, we are all light. The more that we have these conversations, we're able to transmute the energy of war into the energy of love.
Yeah. I know several people have already said they're signing up for your newsletter. This is where you can find Erikaa. It's her name, Erikaa. There's two A's. Erikaa.
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 Yes.
I'm working
You
on
got
it.
it, Scott. You got it.
Good, thank you. And then her last name, Briones. Briones. ErikaaBriones.com. And is there any particular upcoming workshop or something you'd like for us to point out to people?
Yes, there is an upcoming workshop happening March 5th. So this is specifically for women overcoming heartbreak.
Wow.
So I believe heartbreak brings up a lot of shame and guilt, and there will be dancing, there will be movement. I will be doing some healing called emotional clearing. It's a modality to clear some of the heavy blocks to be able to make decisions from the place of lightness, from the place of peace. So this is one of my last workshops for now, but I am just so excited to just invite some of the women to come into this container for healing, because I believe that, you know, I'm not here to heal. I believe it's a collective healing that we need. The idea that we need a guru is changing. We're now in the lane of community. Community is healing. So I'm not here to be your guru. I'm not here to be your shaman. I believe that we're here to be a collective, and within the collective, there is a healing. So that is my invitation to come join this workshop. If you have a sister, if you have a cousin that is overcoming heartbreak, and heartbreak is really like the energy of grief, the energy of sadness. And so I will definitely be doing a healing. So.
And that's on March 5th.
Mhm.
And what time is that going to be?
10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Great. Thank you so much for blessing our world with your presence, for your wisdom, your vulnerability, your honesty, and just your Erikaa-ness.
Erikaa. Erikaa. That's my sound.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.